Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Uh, Welcome to the RPR Wyatt webinar on IBM Connections.
Jim.
First of all, before we get into the heart of the presentation, I want to take a moment to remind everyone of IBM's standard disclaimer as it relates to the information we are sharing here today. The IBM reserves the right to change the release dates and planned features of any of the technologies we discuss. And we at RPR Wyatt would like to also add that we believe this information to be accurate and reflecting of the latest information shared by IBM. All right, we've made the attorneys happy. We can now move on. Let's see. Allow me to introduce today's presenters. Today we have Alan Forbes, VP of Product Management at RPR Wyatt, and myself, Jim Engel. Let me take a moment to mention that yesterday Alan joined the ranks of the IBM champions. We are very proud of that, his achievement. All right.
Thank you very much.
Jim. All righty. Let's review today's agenda. I will speak briefly on RPR Wyatt organization and related offerings. I will then address the modern need for social software in general, and Alan will address Connections social software in specific. Alan will also wrap up with a monitoring of connections with vital signs. Alrighty. The RPR Wyatt organization. RPR Wyatt now has offices and teams in all of those locations. We have development services in Boston, Phoenix, and India. Our IT centers plus support and consulting services are in Texas and Slovakia. And finally, sales is handled out of both Phoenix and Monaco. Here's what we offer. In the interest of time, I'm going to share this list of RPR products and services, but will not go into great detail today. Please let me know if you have any questions. Please visit our website for additional information. Our products, we have Essential Tools, Swiss Army knife of admin tools. Essential Agent Master monitors 35 different aspects of agents, and Vital Signs, our premier monitoring and reporting tool for collaborative technologies. Alan will be covering Vital Signs monitoring and reporting for Connections later on in today's webinar. Our services include custom development work, consulting, level 3 support for administrators, and technical support. Okay. I'd like to mention something we call the Software Trifecta. We have an offer for everyone on the webinar today, a special that we have on for the month of December. Our products work great as standalone software solutions, but when combined, they have the power to transform an organization. Since our products perform at their peak when they are combined, we are giving you a chance to do just that today. Sign up for a single product evaluation before 2017 and receive 3 free 1-year product licenses of your choice. Alrighty. That's more or less the commercials. All right, let's get started. We have a little offer for everyone on the web. An old Chinese curse goes like this: may you live in interesting times. I think of it more as a blessing than a curse, but we do live in interesting times. Times of change. We are living in a time where we are constantly witnessing many aspects of our society begin their momentous shift to digital. The digital shift is driven by productivity, allowing individuals to accomplish more or less in less time. As technology continues to advance, we will become more and more reliant on it to accomplish our day-to-day tasks. The digital shift is on. Let's take, for example, Black Friday. In 2016 marked the first year in which online sales on Black Friday surpassed the amount of in-store sales. Black Friday was infamous for one thing, for getting shoppers into the stores by enticing them with unbeatable deals. So what would change? In 2016, 108 million online shoppers shopped versus only 99 million in the stores. And that trend is going to continue. So why did the shoppers stay at home on the busiest shopping day of the year? That's the answer. It's the busiest shopping day of the year. People place a high value on their time, especially on days like that. Nobody wants to be waiting in line for hours just to find a TV you just sold out. Okay? Especially on the biggest shopping day of the year. We want what we want, and we want it now. And that's what happened to Black Friday. The digital shift happened. With consumers questioning the frenzy of Black Friday, if it's worth it, retailers were forced to react. They used technology. They shifted digitally to overcome the obstacles to productivity. By offering the same or similar deals online, consumers could finish their shopping in minutes rather than spending hours at a mall. and thus the transition started from at Black Friday goes from brick and mortar to click and order. The digital shift to online purchasing changed Black Friday forever. So what does that have to do with connections and social software? Just as the digital shift is addressing the chaos of Black Friday with the solution of online shopping, the digital shift to connection social software addresses the chaos of inefficient communications. Trying to collaborate with colleagues sometimes can be as hectic as Black Friday shopping, especially as the numbers of employees increase within an organization. Trying to track down subject matter experts within a company may require multiple calls or emails until you're finally connected with the right or the correct colleague. Collaboration on documents can be awkward and at times intensive. Employees and organizations that are leveraging the power of connections are able to build a network of colleagues and subject matter experts to assist them. Additionally, with connections, they can collaborate as needed. Okay? Let's talk a little about social software. Signs of the digital shift have been present in business for quite some time now, mainly because of technology's ability to increase productivity in many organizations. Also, that means increasing profits. The internet is just the biggest, most obvious example of the digital shift. However, the latest example of the digital shift in business is the revolution in how employees collaborate within and around an organization. For example, leveraging social software. Employees today no longer work in the same office or sometimes even in the same country, but it is more essential today than ever that they communicate and collaborate with one another. Social business software addresses that need using intuitive collaboration to achieve that. We'd like to do a quick short survey with you at this point, and then I'm going to list some barriers to organizational communications. Scott, would you go ahead?
Okay, great. We have just about 3 short, quick polls we'd like to just run here for a moment. So the first poll is if your organization is or will be leveraging social business software, will it be cloud or on-premise based? So we're kind of interested here to see if anyone's looking at on-premise or going to leverage what's available on the cloud. Right, we're almost all voted. It's very quick. That's good. I'm going to share the results and then I'll jump into the next poll. So 80% of us definitely going cloud-based. So that's kind of a norm. Perfect. Let me jump into the second poll. And this one is, does or will your organization utilize social business software to collaborate internally, externally, or both? And we're almost at half of us voted already. Everybody's still awake. This is a good sign. Give us 2 more seconds here. We'll get the last vote in. Last couple of votes. And going to share the results. Results are a few of us just internally only, and the majority of us, though, of course, internally and externally. Excellent. And our last poll for today. Are you currently monitoring or plan to monitor your social business software? All right, we're over half of us already voted. 2 more seconds and I'll share the results. And yep, everybody's planning to monitor social business software. Absolutely necessary as it is an outward application. Perfect. Here we go. Hiding that. And Jim, we're back to your screens.
All righty. Just a few more points, and then we're going to move on to 2 demos. All right. Here are a couple of examples of organizational barriers to communications that social business software can address. First is loss of or distortion of messages as they pass from one level to another. Deliberately withholding of information from peers perceived as rivals. First of all, let me back off and say, if you've been around long enough in the business world, you've seen these issues, and you've seen them lead to failure in the workplace. So, and I think these are some of the issues that are really have been at the root of really impeding productivity, if you will. And I think social software is going to give us a great boost in productivity predicated on addressing these and mitigating these circumstances. Let me go on a couple of other examples of these. Information gaps between what upper management knows and the true state of affairs. I can name a few organizations. Lack of communication policy. Authoritarian attitude of management. Poorly defined authority and responsibility. Too many levels in an organizational structure. IT environmental complexity. Using a multitude of tools to accomplish the job of collaboration. Connection solves these issues. It facilitates a certain democratization, if you will, small d, spin to the organizational information, and allows organizations to get away from the silos of information. Okay? Alan will now address how Connections helps break down these barriers. Alan?
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. So, as an IBM champion, I'm here today to champion IBM Connections. And really what I want to do is explain, sort of what is it, what's the point, what's it look like, answer some basic questions. And what we're trying to do here is talk about what's the point. So I think all of us have experienced these kind of organizational barriers, even in small companies. We see some of these things. So if I tell Jim something and Jim tells Dylan something and Dylan tells Annabelle and Annabelle tells Amber and so forth, by the time it makes it all the way around, the message is distorted at best. So instead of doing it that way and having phone conversations and individual emails that get forwarded around or so, if you post it into IBM Connections, then it's immediately visible to everybody, and that negates some of the potential distortions and loss. And again, not necessarily everything that you post in Connections is visible to everybody, because you do have control over who sees what, but it makes a big difference. Okay, so deliberately withholding information from peers perceived as rivals. I think we all have experienced that at one point or another in our life. If you're using social software and you're posting updates of what you're up to and what you're working on, other people can see it. And more importantly, when you start to adopt IBM Connections and you start to build the culture of sharing information of what you're doing, it's a lot harder for people to withhold information like that before, because that behavior is suddenly visible. So the information gap between what upper management knows and the true state of affairs. Again, even in our small company, we struggle with this sometimes. I'm the VP of product management, and I'm always thinking of ideas and directions of where the product can go, and sometimes we charge off in a direction and I don't necessarily tell everybody why we're doing it. So if you have a blog and you can post stuff like this, it's a lot easier to get your message out and to let people know, here's what we're thinking, here's why we've made this decision, here's why we're moving in that direction. And just to state the obvious, the difference between a wiki and a blog, technically they're basically the same thing, but the goals are different. A wiki tends to be more used for things like documentation, and the expectation is that you would go back and update documents, as circumstances change, but a blog is more like a stream of consciousness, public diary kind of thing. Okay, so lack of communication policy. Very few companies have an actual formal communication policy, and with IBM Connections, it's less necessary to even have one, because communication just becomes so much easier, and people can find the information that they're interested in, and it doesn't have to follow such a structure. It just makes it easy. Authoritarian attitude of management. Again, it sort of comes back to the deliberate withholding information, or and even this is not necessarily deliberate, but when you adopt IBM Connections and it's more of a cultural shift than a technology shift, then you get this democratization of data, and it's harder for managers to be authoritarians about information. Poorly defined authority and responsibility. This is not necessarily going to change formal roles, but it does make the informal more visible. So it may be that a particular person is in charge of a specific area in the business on paper, but when you find out who is actually the influencer of these things, because it's now more out in the public, it's more easy to see, who your internal experts are and who really, where the accountability really lies. It basically just puts everything out in public. And the next one, with too many levels in the organizational structure, that kind of falls into the democratization of communication again, because it flattens things out. Anybody can contribute to a conversation. I could post a blog entry and someone could reply to it. Somebody that necessarily might not speak up in a meeting or might not necessarily know who would be interested in their opinion, you just kind of throw it out there, and it gives an equal voice to all the members of a project team. And the last one, environmental IT complexity. The last thing you really want is to implement some new complicated thing that people are going to have to learn, and you go here for this and there for that and yet another place for something else. IBM Connections is simple. It's like deceptively simple looking, and it also integrates very nicely with Outlook and Lotus Notes, so there's quite a bit of things that you can do embedded right within the mail client, and you don't have to switch around to a lot of places to get stuff done. So, okay. So this is something we came up with to try to talk about sort of, what's the point? What is it you're trying to do, and how is it that Connections helps with these things? So what we want to do is you want to empower your users, you want them to be engaged, you want to help the company innovate, and in a lot of cases you want to extend the technology out to vendors and partners and bring them into the customers, into the conversation. So we'll have a slide on each one of these. In case you guys haven't picked up on it, I'm doing the talking and Jim is advancing the slides, so that's why there's sometimes a little bit of pause there. But you're doing a great job, Jim. Thank you very much. So we want to empower the users. We want them to contribute, and we want to empower them, to take action in context and to work with people virtually wherever they are. So this is a screenshot of the basic dashboard as seen in a browser, but there's also Connections mobile apps, so people can work, wherever they are. And if something goes by on their stream that, hey, I know something about that, they can very easily comment on it, and whether they're in their mail file or whether they're in the browser or whether they're on their mobile device, and it empowers them to get engaged. So that's a link to the next slide. So you want to engage people, and Connections encourages that with their friendly interface. So on this screenshot here, there's another third-party product that's not ours. It's called Kudos Badges. A number of the customers that we work with who deploy Connections tend to buy Kudos Badges too. It seems like, we're adults. We wouldn't really fall for that. It's not like we're playing, Super Mario here, but it actually does work because it's a way of measuring the level of engagement. So, the more you contribute to various communities and forums and so forth, you get more points, and that counts towards badges. And when people are looking you up, you have a public profile. Part of your profile becomes how many badges you've earned, to what extent are you a contributor, and it makes it fun. So gamification is something that sometimes has a dirty word. You might have to sell that to your upper management to say, this really does make a difference when you measure and you reward and you encourage user adoption. So I think it can be quite fun. Okay, so next slide on that one there, Jim. So one of the points of IBM Connections is to make your company more innovative, right? So you've got all this internal knowledge spread around, and the bigger your company is, the harder it is to find your internal experts and who might know something about what. So there's a couple of things that IBM Connections does to help this. When I get into the demo, I'll show you some of the various pieces like the communities and blogs and so forth, but there's something called the seed list person crawler, which is kind of classic IBM branding of sushi is dead fish on cold white rice. But what's cool about it is it solves an actual problem, and the problem is that you don't necessarily know who in your company knows something about the thing that you're trying to learn about. So the person crawler basically allows IBM Connections to do, think of it as like an internal Google search, and it can search your SharePoint if you have that, and it can search FileNet, and it can search other areas of your company and pull it all together to get an actual profile of the user in terms of what we think they might know. And then that works in conjunction with something called Connections Recommendations. So if you're trying to find somebody, you're participating in a discussion or posting something, IBM Connections can recommend, hey, you might want to talk to Scott Sullivan about this, or hey, you might want to talk to Jim Engel about this. It's quite cool, actually, how it can identify who might be a good contributor. And again, the point is to innovate. So you have a problem you're trying to solve, you're stuck, you're thinking, geez, who could help me here on this? There may be somebody out there in your organization that knows the answer or could help spark the answer in you if you only knew who to talk to. So that's what the seed list person crawler and Connections Recommendations is all about. Okay, next slide. Sorry for the geeky image there. So the last thing you want to do is extend the technology beyond organizational barriers and, beyond organizational boundaries. If you're a large organization that works with vendors and you have contracts and you have customers and you want to tie all this stuff together, you can put connections outside your firewall and still have it be secure and collaborate with people and bring them into just the conversations you want them brought into and keep them out of the conversations that you don't want them in. And it integrates with internal and external mail, ties it all together, and kind of makes it all seem seamless because, of course, you don't have control of your customers or your vendors, and just because you throw a community out there doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to, feel compelled to check on it every day. But when you tie it into mail, when something happens here and it reaches out to them and says, hey, this community that you're following has some activity today, you might want to check it out. That tends to pull people back in. So that's pretty cool too. All right, so next, the demo. Okay, so you have to make me the presenter. I have been made the presenter. Okay, so main screen, screen 2. Okay. Is it sharing?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I picked it. And then, how about now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So here I am in IBM Connections, and if you haven't seen it before, think of it as Facebook for grown-ups. So I could come in here and post an update, like just got off the webinar today. You're not going to use it to post what you had for lunch, but you could use it to post things that you're working on or upcoming meetings or things that are work related. So not to pick on lunch or anything, but today in our organization we tend to have Taco Thursday, which Jim hosts to bring people together. He could post something in here and say, hey guys, don't forget Taco Thursday, 12 o'clock. We want to all down there in the cafeteria room to have a little social time. And there's online collaboration and offline collaboration, and this stuff brings it all together. So I just posted an update. If you look on apps here, you see I've got activities, blogs, bookmarks, files, forums, wikis. You also have something called communities. So a community is a way of bringing people together, and a community could be around a specific business problem, like doing a new release of a product, or you're implementing a new process, or you're opening a new office, or you're putting together an event or something. You build a community around that specific purpose, and then you invite people into it. Then all the bookmarks or activities and to-do items that are related to that project all show up inside of that community. We work with a number of companies that use IBM Connections, and there is often some internal political debate about whether a particular community is work-related enough or not. So without naming who it is, we have a customer that I work with, and as they were rolling out Connections, trying to get people engaged, one of their end users proposed a community around rock climbing, because it turned out that there were a fair number of people interested in the company around rock climbing, but one of the VPs didn't think that was a very good idea because it wasn't related to work or not. And this is where you sort of have to play the internal championing of this thing, because in fact there may be a group of disparate engineers spread around the company working on different things that might be able to contribute to each other, wouldn't ordinarily come in contact with each other, but when you create a community, in this case around rock climbing, that brings them together for social stuff, you spark the possibility of ad hoc collaboration. Like, hey, Jim, what are you working on? Oh, geez, I'm stuck on this thing, and we've been working on it for a while, and the other guy says, oh, well, I just did something like that, 2 months ago, and maybe I can help you out with it. It's not about the rock climbing. It's about bringing people together. So don't feel like a community only has to be about opening a new office or only has to be about a very specific business thing. If you can bring people together, you can set them up for leveraging each other's expertise. So I could go into a community that I'm a member of, and then that sort of filters it down. So inside of that community, I could create bookmarks related to the community. I can have a forum around this community. I can give it a description. I can put files up there. And picture this 6 months down the road or a year down the road, and I'm a member now of 20 communities, and they're all got activity on them. How do I keep track of all that stuff? If you're familiar with the Facebook metaphor, IBM Connections is very similar to that. So I can follow communities just like you follow people in Facebook. and I have a home page, which is a stream, which will show me, here are the things that other people who I'm following have done. Here are some status updates people have done. And finally, there's a tab here called Discover. This is particularly cool, where it just kind of suggests things that you might be interested in. So it's not a community that you're specifically following. It's not a person that you've specifically said I'm interested in, but it's just stuff that's happening out there that IBM Connections puts out there that you can follow along. So, there's a whole lot more to it, but the point of this webinar is not to teach you everything there is to know about IBM Connections, but to introduce you to it and to kind of explain what it is. In my opinion, IBM is awesome at building technology, not so good at explaining it. So hopefully that helped out. So remind me, Jim, am I supposed to go back to the presentation now? Show the.
Scott has to bring you back.
Scott has to bring me back. We're going to pick it back
you
up.
can do present.
Or I'm going to talk about Monterey.
Okay, are we switching back to your slides, Jim?
It's a well-oiled machine, Scott.
Exactly.
Don't you
Yes,
worry.
back to my slides, please. Back
Yeah.
to me.
Yep, you should have pop up on your screen.
see
Go
it
ahead and
coming up.
Perfect, we got you.
Also talk about the connection suite.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing my screen?
We do.
All right, Alan, you're on.
Would you believe in that transition? Go to meetings, switch my microphone out once again. I think I got it back now. Okay.
You're back, Alan. We can hear you.
So we're going to talk about the connection suite here. So the stuff that I talked about first was kind of the core, IBM Connections, and the goal of that is to make your organization more social, to enhance productivity and reduce costs. And the last bullet there is the key there, which is to liberate key organizational content. And organizational content can exist in any number of places. It can be, in spreadsheets on people's hard drives. It can be in people's heads. It can be in PowerPoint presentations that someone gave a year ago and then, or forgot about. You put all this stuff in IBM Connections, and now Watson can crawl it, and people can find it, and they can identify you as somebody who might help them. So that's the core there. And if you advance it to the next little image there. So of course, IBM would love to sell you add-ons to this stuff, and I guess I should say, although Jim, we're going to say we don't sell IBM Connections. We do sell things that add on to it, but we're not in the market of selling this stuff. But as you start to use IBM Connections and embrace it, of course, there's more stuff. It can get better and better. And one of the things is this Connections Content Manager. And content management platforms help, control content creation and access. And it's a more formal way of keeping track of the files that are up there. If you try to put it simple, so you can have versioning, and people can check it out, and you can do multi-user online editing, and you can act on the content and so forth. And then the next piece is Same Time Complete, which is, I'm sure everybody here knows what Same Time is, but it integrates Same Time into Connections in a much deeper way, integrating voice and video and mobile device support, and allowing you to instant message securely with external parties. So Forrester did a survey of Connections customers and tried to quantify the actual costs and benefits and metrics that people got from implementing Connections. And across their survey set, they found on average 168% return on investment. So you get back, the more you spend, the more you make on this, and that the payback period is actually less than a year. So that gives a net present value of $16 million. So of the customers that they, surveyed, that was a net positive for them in the millions. So a 20% overall reduction in IT operating, 10% increase in user activity. I'm not sure exactly how they measured that. But this was an interesting one, compared to companies that are not using IBM Connections, they found a 5% reduction in employee attrition. Well, that was kind of cool. Jim, you want to talk about this one? I think is your friend John Lovey's.
Sure. We collaborate with an organization called Preferred Partners, and if you want to secure licenses for Connections, certainly John will be able to work with you. We collaborate with him. We will bring him in if you bring us in, and he just handles the licensing. That's what all his organization does. Does it for a number of the business partners in the IBM community. Additionally, there is
kind of complex.
Yes, IBM licensing, it may be that may you live in interesting times. That may be the actual origin of the Chinese curse. But we do have, but IBM is offering a 60-day free trial by visiting, and you can connect to that by visiting our website. We have a link there for accessing the trial of Connection. Certainly encourage you to do that. We'd be delighted to collaborate with you, bringing that down, setting it up, be bringing together a POC and helping your organization fully realize the value of the tool. We'd be delighted to be involved with you at any time in that process. All right, Alan, I think from here we're going to go to Q&A about Connections itself. Are there any questions?
And this is not the end of the webinar, because we're going to do Q&A about Connections, then I'm going to do a quick demo of how we monitor connections with vital signs and some of the metrics that we can pull out of it, and then we'll have Q&A about that. So stick around if you want to see that, please.
So are there any questions?
Okay, perfect. So if you do have a question, you can just expand your GoToWebinar control panel and type in the question, and then I'll read that to Alan and Jim and let them answer. While you're thinking of your questions, I actually have a question. It's very intriguing. On the Discover tab in the in the basic connections that you showed us, does that return information based on your profile? What your interests are, or job description?
I don't know exactly how it decides what makes the cut and what doesn't. To me, it seems just kind of like a fire hose of just stuff going by and what people are posting and updating. But it may well filter based on what you've put in your own profile, what you've shown interest in the past. I mean, I think that's kind of the IBM Watson social analytics thing that can make it smarter and smarter over time.
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
Okay, perfect. Well, I was just that one intrigued me because
someone on there, it is kind of cool. If anybody that's out there knows the answer, you can post that in the chat window too. That would be awesome.
Yeah, perfect. So, all right. Let's see. I guess everybody's either asleep or just they know everything already. So maybe we'll jump on to the next segment here.
Okay. So what I'm going to talk about now is why you would want to try that again, Alan. Why you would want to monitor the social software. So we have a little image here that shows you a typical, deployment of what IBM Connections might look like, and we've got some of our customers that have pretty complex environments. And, at this point, if you really engineer it properly, there's no reason for IBM Connections to go down. But that doesn't mean that there are not necessarily problems with it. Jim, you might as well just go ahead and put all of the bullets up there because I'm going to skip around a little bit. So what we do is we have built a dashboard called Vital Signs, and it monitors IBM Connections and WebSphere and SameTime and Domino, the whole, True Blue suite of stuff. And, I think it's particularly important in the beginning when you're first deploying IBM Connections to make sure that the user experience is as good as it can be. So, if you have nodes or things in the background that have gone down, The end user might not necessarily notice that. However, it might be a little bit slower. You want to have a tool that's actually looking at all this stuff in the background. If you've got, heap sizes that are set way greater than they need it, and when you look at the actual usage, you've got resources that you could free up from one place and put them to somewhere else to optimize your allocation. You want to make sure that when a user goes to create a bookmark or to create a blog entry or something, that it comes up really fast. On a big deployment, all that stuff's happening on separate boxes. So you actually have to test all those pieces. So what Vital Signs does is it tests all those pieces from an end user point of view, make sure that we can make a bookmark, that we can make a blog entry, that we can do something to inside a community and delete something, and then we clean it all up and we do it all again. And when it falls below a certain threshold, that can trigger an alert. And you can also see trends in that over time. So it's also possible that when you first deploy it, it's as fast as lightning, and as more and more people get on it, it gets slower and slower. But equally important, I think, is making sure that people are using it. So, IBM does have an add-on for metrics, and actually, when I get the control back, I will show you that real quick. But the metrics is an optional component that you have to pay extra for. And so what we try to do is give you the metrics that our customers are saying, this is the stuff that I really want to know about, and put it in the context of a larger monitoring dashboard that monitors the whole thing, not just metrics inside of Connections. Scott, could you make me the presenter again? Go to webinar, we'll share this screen, show my screen.
We see it?
Yeah, you see it?
Yes.
We see it.
Okay, cool. So I go to the home page here, and then I go down to well, maybe that's not going to work right now. So I had it on there earlier where basically you click on metrics and it says, sorry, the Cognos server is not installed. But maybe you guys have seen that dance before anyway. So let's switch over to Vital Signs now. Basically, the two goals are to make sure that everything's working and make sure that it's working quickly, and then to pull trends out of what's going on inside of IBM Connections. So adoption tends to be unequal. There will be groups and departments that tend to embrace Connections quickly and other groups that embrace it slowly. With a tool like this, you can identify the groups that are adopting it quickly, and you can identify your internal champions and your thought leaders and use them as case studies to promote Connections out to the organization. So this dashboard here is, of all my servers, 15 are cool, 6 have issues, 10 are not responding. Here's the breakdown of my Domino servers, my WebSphere servers, my same-time servers, Connections, and so forth. So you could click on any one of these things to drill down. I have learned that in the world of demo, it's much better to have the tabs preloaded. So I'm just going to switch over. So here's my IBM Connections health dashboard. We have 2 instances set up internally. Of course, the way demos go, the thing's not responding right this second. However, we do grab metrics every day at midnight, so I've got some nice metrics here. You can get an overview of daily activities in total. You can see the tags that are, and a tag would be if somebody creates a bookmark or creates a wiki entry or whatever, they can tag it so that people can find things based on tags, because sometimes content that's related is scattered throughout. You can look at the different communities and see which ones are the most active ones. Communities can be public or private. What's the distribution of those? What's your most active community and what's going on inside of it? The profiles are the thing that I set up here with my picture and my my interests and so forth, and my contact information. So what this does is makes an assessment of how complete are the profile setup. Do they have the pictures? Do they have the hierarchy? Do they say who the managers are and so forth? The activities, what's going on inside of there, what's going on with blogs, which communities are using blogs, are people creating bookmarks, and how many bookmarks are being created and where are they showing up. This is my personal favorite community, the Friends of Alan community. Files, are people using files? How many files are in the trash? How many files were uploaded last week? How many files have been revised, so forth. This is like user metric stuff. Hey, what's going on inside of there? Let me switch over to WebSphere Health. All the stuff runs on top of WebSphere, of course. So you want to see the health of your cells. You want to see the health of the nodes. You want to see the health of the servers. You want to know, what's the heap. What do they have for free memory? Do they have hung threads? These are all showing zeros because none of them have hung threads. That's nice. If anything goes wrong with any one of these components, that'll trigger an alert that will filter up to the top of the dashboard. And finally, there's something called the server list. So if you're responsible for this entire infrastructure of things, you've got Domino servers and WebSphere servers at the same time and so forth, you can quickly scroll down the list, click on an individual item, and take a deep dive into that particular server and see what's going on. And finally, we've got reports. Let me just set that down. So we've got some reports. I made them just before the presentation here and put them out to PDF. So for instance, you can get a list of all of your communities, who's the members, who's the owners, and you can get reports like user adoption for the overall metrics. And man, I gotta say, my my throat is so dry, I think I'm gonna wrap up the demo right here. Jim?
All right.
All right.
Sounds like a perfect time.
Grab some water.
All right. At this time, we do have any Q&A. If there is questions regarding vital signs, regarding connections with vital signs, or vital signs with connections, feel free to go ahead and post those questions. All right.
All right, perfect. I'm checking to see if we have some questions. And we'll get your screen back online there, Jim. So there is a follow-up to my question from earlier. While Alan was doing the demo, I had a little netbook laying around, so I installed Connections real quick to figure this out. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Luckily, Scott Rogers is on the webinar with us today, and he gave us, from IBM, gave us an explanation that the recommendations engine on that Discover tab is basically a mapping of your affinities, like what tags you have in common with others.
Ah, cool.
Are you both following the same content?
Right.
Are you actually seeing this?
Yeah, we see your screen. We're back to Q&A. So thank you, Scott, for that explanation.
Yeah. It really is cool.
It is.
I gotta say.
Okay, I'm expanding a couple of windows here on my control panel just to make sure I don't have any more items open here. But yeah, so if you do have any questions about the monitoring, user adoption, of course, was very interesting there, Alan. I think that report would interest most companies that are with Connections or thinking
yeah, we
about
made
that.
it specifically for a customer, actually, because the two things you care about. One is particular communities that are taking off and starting to really see engagement, because you want to go interview those people and find out what they like about it and promote that. And then the other thing you want to see is communities that are dropping off. And if a community is dropping off because the project is over, Like if they were put together to plan an event or something and the event is over, that's fine. But if they came together, you know, for an ongoing business purpose and it just kind of peters out over time, you want to catch that before, you know, you have a dead mall. And if you can catch it early and find out, you know, why is the engagement dropping off, you might be able to do something about it. So both of those things are important, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a tremendous value in seeing that. So hopefully,
not easy to know.
Yeah, it's definitely not when you're dealing with browsers and not actual installations, and you know, it's definitely a challenge. And we see this in the trade shows when we go to where company, you know, adoption of new technology is a key factor. Key. It is very key.
Well, that's the part of the product I'm actually the most proud of. You know, we've been doing red light status stuff, you know, for years and years and years, and we can find problems, you know, as good as anybody. But you know, this is important stuff where it's actually, you know, trying to get a pulse on the politics and the engagement and trying to change the culture of a company and actually be able to see that in a measurable way. It's really...
And frankly, Alan, by measuring this, you're actually attacking a very long existing problem that no one talks about in IT, shelfware.
Right. Yeah. Last thing you want to do
is...
And,
I've sold it. Yeah, software.
It just sits there.
I sold it. It sits there. People buy it. They get enthused by it. They love it. They see the vision. They embrace it. They deploy it, and then they forget to communicate and collaborate around it. And suddenly, some people aren't using it, and they don't know why it hasn't taken off the way they thought it would. And that by feeding back these user metrics, I think you're really, you know, taking shelfware or minimizing the shelfware aspects of these kind of softwares as we go forward. And that's
Of course, our tool is not going to eliminate the politicking and the promoting and the internal championing that you have to do, but it is going to help you find allies in that cause, and that is super important.
All right. I'm going to move us on, and I just want to... Okay. Having a look. There we go. I'd like to talk about the cup. What we have is a cup that we have in our organization for the last over a year or two now, and it's kind of popular. It's been popular with a lot of our clients. It's we think it's the most coveted cup in the world. It's the I Helped Alan Design Vital Signs. We want to hear from you. Every great feature in Vital Signs, sorry, Alan, every great feature in Vital Signs is really originating with our client base. Okay?
Come on, they're all my ideas.
Exactly. And every one of these people we've appreciated and we've recognized, and we like to do that with you. If you take a survey, click on the website and take the survey. Any ideas that come will be rewarded. Believe me, we will promote you, we will honor you, we will prestige you. Look for a link on the survey in the webinar follow-up email in order to be able to participate in this, get your cup. We certainly look at that. We also give a lot of other rewards for these things, but we'll stop there.
We'll be handing them out in San Francisco, won't we?
Yes, we will. In fact, that's our next... Okay.
Also great for beer.
Okay, yes, and I remind you to please visit our website, find out what's your connection to what's up next, and all puns are intended. And we will hopefully get to see you at our booth in Connect 2017 this February in San Francisco. We finally... what used to be in Orlando forever has now finally moved to the West Coast, and I'm going to be very intrigued to see the change in the participants at this new event. Very excited about it.
Times.
All righty, folks. Thanks. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. We look forward to working with you as always.
Thank you
for a great day.
Listening.
Thank you for joining.
Bye all.